Welcome to the 122nd broadcast of the T-Roh Show. It's your host, Keith. Got John with me.
Good morning, folks.
All right, this is going to be just to kind of go over, but we're going to show you some other things about gold and silver that we were talking about that we put in the newspaper. Just wanted to go over some things. We talked about the social compact last week, or in the last program. I guess we've hit a couple of programs this week because we had good information that we needed to get out. All right. This is under the biggest lie ever told by the United States, Inc. This is dealing with social compacts. So just for everybody's information, you can get the law review here. It says, while the framers of the Constitution may have been affected by social contract theory, the Constitution is not itself the social contract. Everybody thought it was, but it's not. Constitutions are not social contracts. A social contract is not a contract among the branches of sovereign government or between sovereigns. The states and the federal government, it says the social contract is among the people or between the people and the sovereign. So just keep that in mind. It's also in the Law of Nations. It's right here. This is the biggest lie I was ever told. Because in order to have a constitution, you have to have a people. A people is formed through a social compact before any constitution is written. This is the way it is all over the world. It always has been this way. So we talked about it before. We're going to show you just a little bit more evidence and information so you get a good idea as to what is really going on. This is in that book that you can download. It's right there in the newspaper. It says the purpose for which men enter into society will determine the nature and terms of the social compact. And as they are the foundation of legislative power, they will decide what are the proper objects of it. The foundation of legislative power. The nature and ends of legislative power will limit the exercise of it. It was never the Bill of Rights that limited any form of governing. Just keep that in mind. That was not the social compact. The Bill of Rights give you zero rights whatsoever. It's the social compact that created it is what limits the governing power. If there's any legislative acts that are being made and they are not in harmony with the social compact that was written, that created it, then it is without authority. Okay? And the nature and ends of legislative power will limit the exercise of it. An act of the legislature, for I cannot call it a law, contrary to the great first principles of the social compact, cannot be considered a rightful exercise of legislative authority. Okay, so Justice Chase's position seems clear. The social compact or contract empowers the legislature to enact certain varieties of legislation. Legislation outside the power granted under the contract is without authority. So think of it this way. If you do not have a social compact, whatever statutes you guys are being charged with are without authority whatsoever. In other words, they do not exist. I didn't say that. The Law of Nations says it. And then this law review says it. And these were opinions back in 1798. This was basic common sense. Basic common sense law. If a lawyer can't understand this, he's not a lawyer. If an attorney can't understand it, he's not an attorney. If a judge can't understand it or has never read it, they're not a judge. Because essentially, folks, with this type of evidence that has been placed in publication of record, right here, biggest lie ever told by the United States, Inc. This evidence shows you, and it is now published, that there never was a people of the United States, because there was never a social compact that was signed by anyone that anybody knows of. or it was just a very few. You know, maybe just a couple of guys got in there and they signed a social compact and then they kept it for themselves. Don't know because they never published it. If you've never signed the social compact, you are not a part of the United States. So when somebody says, hey, you guys don't have any authority here, I'm not within a social compact with you or with the United States, they're right. It's not that they're trying to be um, vindictive or rebellious against the great massive authority and all this other stuff. That's not what they're doing. They're basically telling you the truth. It's without authority. Doesn't have any. And so therefore all these laws are being quoted back and forth and under title this and codified that. All that completely is a complete waste of time, money, energy, credit, whatever you want to call it. Complete waste of time. There's no social compact with the people. Kind of shows you why they use taxes as a gift now, right? There's a gift there. So you're gifting it. You're not taxed, you're gifting. Somebody knew this and have been taking advantage of your ignorance for a long time. So if you look at it and say, well, what does this mean? It means all your state legislatures that are passing statutes, none of those statutes have authority because there's no social compact that created it, the legislature in the first place. That step was missed. If you do naturalization, in other words, you go into a country and you're being naturalized into that country, you have to sign the social compact first before you get your oath. That's the way it works. That's how things are done. So the 15 national governments that have been put together, they're put together based on the law of nations. And anybody that wants to challenge it that's outside of those social compacts, where's your social compact? You got nothing. You can't challenge it. You don't even have the authority to recognize it because you're not any type of national government yourself. Your recognition wouldn't matter anyways. That's the whole thing. So if say Brazil doesn't have a social compact with their country that starts their country, they don't have a country. If the people have not signed a social compact, Brazil's not Brazil. And we're pretty sure you'll find that with many, many other countries doing the same thing. They call themselves countries. They're a part of the United Nations. Which means if there's no social compact that created those countries cannot be a part of a United Nations. Therefore, there is no United Nations. Does that sound about right, John?
That sounds exactly right, Keith. Completely and exactly right.
If Iraq doesn't have a social compact among the people before it starts its government, it's a contract by which they will enter into that society. And nobody has signed one. You have no Iraq. Basically, you have an empty map when it comes to building nations. It's the way nations have been built for thousands of years. The only way a monarch is an actual monarch is if their people have a social compact. That's the contract between the people and the monarch. If the monarch doesn't have a social compact with their people, he's not a monarch. It doesn't matter what kind of coronation stone they sat on. It doesn't matter what kind of freaking oath they took. It doesn't matter about any of that shit because it's all just empty. It doesn't exist because it never happened. They're just playing monarch. Okay, we're going to sit here and play that this guy's a king. Everybody's just going to believe it. All the world's a stage. Kind of makes sense now, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
It's just a play. So as everybody get, that's pretty clear on what's going on. So, and I know that's hard to take for a lot of people. It's hard to realize that, holy crap, the whole foundation is just pulled out from underneath you. The whole rug is just gone. Well, that's real life. That's being an adult. You're gonna have to deal with it. There's no other way to deal with it. So the only ones that had a social compact were the ones that were within the Articles of Confederation, and then they stopped it under the Articles of Confederation. The states, we've gotten evidence that the states did sign a social compact before. The people signed a social compact before they created their governments. They were sovereign nations, and they still are today. They're just sitting in a trust, waiting for people to enter into a social compact and come and get them, because this government has had them since that time. And we took those states and put them in trust because we didn't want any foreigners getting them. So basically, you're welcome. The government of the United States of America has been correct since its inception, and no one can deny that truth. And that all the bashing and lies must be taken down from those blogs that have been spewing lies upon lies for the past 5 years. They've been attacking me personally. They've been attacking John personally. They've been attacking a lot of people. You guys suck. You're sovereign citizens and all this other crap. That's sparse. The people that actually, matter, haven't been saying that. But the other ones that are just ignorant, they've been saying it because they don't understand. They don't have a society. They never formed one. If you never formed a society, you don't have a freaking government. And people will say, well, it's Social Security, it's this, it's that. You're going to be looking around for all kinds of things. You do not have one. That's as simple as that. Those publications of lies show the rest of the world what kind of people they are, and would constantly lie and bear false witness and simply love to hurt other people for no just cause. And that's exactly right. Right now, we have had other people investigate this government over and over again, and they've said, quote, you guys are the only government in existence right now. And that's absolutely correct. Just because we did it the right way. So it's the social compact that limits government, not anything else. And you wonder why we impeached somebody last year. Well, it's because they violated the social compact. They were writing legislation that violated the social compact. It was without authority. Then they tried to push it through. It didn't work. You have to stick with your agreements. So doing amendments to a constitution that really physically does not exist in law is kind of a silly thing to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to just move on. We're going to move forward. We don't know who has a social compact with the tripartite. Don't care. Really has nothing to do with us. The three city state empire has nothing to do with anybody except for the people that are signed on to a social compact with the three city state empire, if there are in fact any that actually have that social compact. Now you understand why they have the Green New Deal and they're throwing legislation out there. It's all a farce. It's all a joke. It's fake, guys. Fake, fake, fake. There's no authority for any of it. Oh, well, we're going to regulate your dog. We're going to regulate this. Show the authority. You don't have a social compact that created the freaking statute. Go to hell. Until you morons figure out how to freaking start a country, how are you going to regulate? You can't. You're trying to regulate this and regulate that. You're basically nothing more than a gang going around and stealing from people. That's all it is. According to the law, not my own opinion. And man, have you guys gotten cocky over that, especially the cities. If you're in a city, you're living in a city, and you're paying taxes, and you haven't signed a social compact that created that city, they're ripping you off. They're stealing from you. Well, you live in our city limits. Don't give a shit whether I live in the city limits. You don't have a city because I've never signed a social compact that create it.
Who created the city limits?
Exactly.
The people that don't have the authority to do it.
This is what we're trying to tell people. This is how off track everybody is. And we've been watching this for 10 years almost. So I was like 9, yeah, about 9 years. We've had people that are so out there that some of our people can't go to the store. That's how much tyranny is in this country right now. Gangs upon gangs just running shit, making it thinking that they're doing the right thing. Well, statute so and so says this, and this is the new law. No, it's not a new law. You don't have a social compact that created that legislature. What you did was you went to two private companies, and these private companies claim themselves a monopoly over the political realm of things, and they've just been running things ever since. And everybody's sitting there going back and forth. You suck. No, you suck. No, you suck. Back and forth. You're a stupid liberal. Oh, you're a stupid conservative. You're a white supremacist. You're this. You're that. You see how stupid this whole thing is? What an embarrassment to the rest of the world this is. You're embarrassing. Because you don't have a social compact. What are you doing? We've had one for a long time. Matter of fact, I'll show it to you. Actually, we've mentioned it about 50 times, haven't we? Okay, here's ours. And this was as amended on the 18th of February 2013. We kept amending it because it was developing. So the country was developing as it was going. And as amended on the 18th, that means there was one before this, and there is one before this. And we agree to a peacetime social compact. It's very, very serious. All offices within the United States of America will not make no regulation respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right to peaceably assemble. Duh. It was right there. We've had this for a long time, guys. And we update them based on the changes that we make and things like that. And we update them, the social compact, so everything is in line. And these are all the people that signed it. And this is the way it works. This is how you start countries. Okay, you can see it's not very long. It's only 6 pages. And we have another one for others for American nationals and residents. So those national governments you guys are seeing put in place, those are real national governments. What's sitting there now, not real, because none of them have a social compact that created it. None of the people, what they call residents, they have driver's licenses and all that, none of them have signed a social compact. It's all built on quicksand. There's nothing there. You know who's been keeping the borders and seaward boundaries in place? That would be the government of the United States of America. You know who's been keeping all the boundaries of the states in place? That would be the government of the United States of America. If it wasn't for the government of the United States of America, you guys would be sitting in a new world order right now. Everybody listening to this show that is not a part of this social compact would be sitting there in having chips in their hand and the whole deal. It's not the United States that's kept it in place. It's the government of the United States of America that kept it in place. So the next time you want to sit and start talking yank about people, just imagine one thing. If it wasn't for this office of the Secretary of State that was created by Social Compact, by the way, and this government here, you wouldn't be arguing with Mexico right now about illegals coming over because that border wouldn't even be there. That's why the Democrats are coming out and saying, oh, just leave it open, leave it open. Can't do that, buddy. You're a private company. You do that, we'll dissolve your ass and arrest every one of you. Keep trying it and keep talking that yank. You are going to abide by the law of nations, whether you like it or not. What's that, John?
A social compact is anytime 2 or 3 people get together and create an assembly, they write a social compact agreement. Then if they want to create a town, they do the same thing, write a social compact agreement with it. If they want a county, the same thing. Everything has to be done in the same manner. Otherwise, doesn't conform to the law.
It does not conform to the law of nations.
That's right.
There's a proclamation that the government of the United States of America is a subject of the law of nations.
Yep.
So any act that's written outside of this social compact has no authority whatsoever because this is the contract that everybody's with. So everybody was, crying about, well, it's only general postmasters can be a part of that. It's because it's a part of our social compact. None of you had any say in it because you were saying, oh, you can't take an oath or affirmation of something. You can't do this. And you're all acting like you had the Constitution. That was the real deal. You thought you had a Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights is not a social compact. Because you had to have a social compact to create the Bill of Rights, which never existed. If it did, it would have been in the 1790 Naturalization Act. White males only and good standing, not a social compact. Doesn't exist. Go read it. That's what it says.
In fact, that violates the law of nations.
Absolutely, it does. So it's time. Now you understand how it was very easily done, where they could pass a Roe v. Wade and issue an unlawful order to murder over 60 million babies. People. It's basically what they are. They're people. Now you get it. This information here is worse than 9/11. Because right after 9/11, for about 3 months, everybody was nice to each other. It's called survivor's guilt. Everybody was actually just nice to each other. It was unbelievable. 3 months later, after that, all went back to crapping on each other again. And then you got councils over there of lawyers trying to write this and that, get more money here, get more money there. Then you go up to the council and you start talking to them and saying, hey, this sucks, this is that. And then they just ignore you and move on. Why? Because you have no social compact to stop them. And you have no social compact that created that council in the first place. So it just became a private company. They've been running you over ever since. You've had guys like Alex Jones whining and crying for 20 years. How does he not know this? That all he has to do is write a social compact. You can't use the United States Constitution unless you want 31 billion or 31 trillion in debt. So all that's left is, the government of the United States of America. Let's just get on moving on to keep moving and establishing these states so that the assemblies that form within those states can register with them, issue their social compact. You guys can't go over this in the legislature. This is our contract with you. They accept it. We put it in the newspaper and move on. Instead of fiddling around with a freaking constitution that has nothing to do with you. And if the military's getting all bent out of shape that oh, you guys aren't including the Constitution of the United States, it's because there's no social compact. And you can't force association. You guys don't even freaking have laws. It's a mess.
And they don't have anybody to write laws.
No, they don't even have a freaking Congress. That's how crazy this is. We had one guy who was an ex-FBI agent. This was I think he was just trying to create fear. But he was saying that he was telling one of our general postmasters, well, I think those people are under investigation for sedition. Sedition against what? Seriously? Against what?
It'd have to be against our own social compact agreement.
Yeah.
No one else has got one.
It's the only one that exists. This was, when it was written, the only social compact that existed in this country alone. That was it. Nothing else was published. If it wasn't published, it didn't exist. Even if it did, I don't even think it did. And being a member of the Masons is not a social compact. Sorry, guys. That's not a social compact. That's just a private membership association. So that's not, no, sorry.
Even if they published it though, Keith, it still wouldn't make it lawful.
No.
Because they didn't have the authority to write it and publish it to start with. Because they didn't have the compact to write it under.
Exactly right. So, we're not asking people to love us. We're not asking people to like us. But I think we've earned your respect. That's all we're asking. It's a little respect. And we'll respect you. You disrespect us, we'll disrespect you. Simple. Little respect goes a long way.
In fact, we've been told that one time before.
What's
by
that?
somebody else. Respect.
Mm-hmm.
Recognition. We recognize your jurisdiction. We hope you recognize ours.
That was the International Criminal Court.
That's right, in The Hague.
In the U.S. right now, the military, they just stopped a prosecutor from coming over. One of the top prosecutors in the ICC for I think she's investigating war crimes over in Afghanistan. Remember, we heard that the other day. They said they're going to break their legs.
Yep.
That's what they're doing. So at any rate, all right. Enough about this. We're going to move on, and hope people understand that if it wasn't for this government, you would have no country to even rebuild. You would have to fight and constantly go back to wars and everything else to fight for your borders and everything else. So, you're welcome. All right. What we're going to do is go into this other thing when dealing with gold and silver, because I think a lot of people wanted to see that or basically understand it. It says, introducing the General Post Office Exchange and Continental Dollar Exchange Act of 2019. Now you understand why it has authority. As amended, this act resolves the problem between the rich and poor, and the way it is designed can eradicate homelessness and a host of other social issues. Here's the link to the official publication. I'm going to read this to you. It does not put the international bankers out of business. However, it does enforce honesty. Okay, so we're going to show you a little bit. I'll just move on to the regulations, and basically what this is called is the Share Currency Exchange System, SCES. So if you see a video where we're only talking to people with gold, silver, and diamonds, this is what it's pertaining to. It's a promotional video we put together. It's only 45 seconds. All right, now listen carefully. This is SCES shall be implemented as follows. Buyer holding the labor-backed continental dollar, known as continental dollar LB. There's a little hyphen in there. All right. That desires to exchange into another currency shall buy a share certificate from a seller offering a share certificate. The share certificate represents a portion of the intangible property rights to a precious metal or other commodity that never changes in value. So, gold, diamond, platinum, silver, whatever you got. If it doesn't change in value, you can offer a share certificate of that. Say you have a gold mine, a share certificate of that gold mine. It's dealing with the intangible property rights. Okay, so what we're doing is we're cutting out this whole thing where they have a monopoly and one currency is exchanged for another because it's all a part of the same organization. That's what's happening. So Mexican pesos are the same as USD. They all come from the same people, the exact same people. They just printed pesos to give you the illusion that it was a foreign currency. Okay? The share certificate can be sold for another currency or held by the buyer as investment or spent as if it were currency. This is something everybody understands because the whole world's based on stock market. The economy is right now. So everybody understands buying shares. So the seller of the share certificate shall allocate a certain amount of precious metal to a third party called a broker that facilitates any and all transactions for a fee and no more than 10% over and above the purchase price of the share certificate. So it's the same as if you go buy troy ounces of silver. If the troy ounces of silver are $15.50 and they want 10% over spot, so they want a certain amount over the $15.50, usually 10% of that, 10% of the purchase price, and then you pay them. You pay them that. That's how they make their money. Okay, they can't oversell the silver. They can't say, okay, I'll sell you the silver. It's worth $15.50, but I'll sell it to you for $18 or $20. It doesn't work that way. They just want 10% over spot. All right. So the seller of the share certificate is strictly forbidden from exchanging the share certificate for the precious metal, and the buyer is strictly forbidden from demanding the precious metal from the seller. Why is that? In other words, you can't take the share certificate and go demand the gold and silver. The reason is because it's only a certain amount. It's just a share of it. That's it. This way, the guy who has the gold and silver never runs out of the freaking gold and silver. He can keep it. Plus, you only buy little slivers of it, little bits and pieces of it. That's it. It would be a complete waste of time. For instance, if you had an ounce of gold right now goes like $1,200-$1,300, and you brought that down to $25, that'd be just a sliver of gold. Why do you want to mess with that? That's not the point. And why would the guy with the gold accept paper for his actual metal? It's not metal for metal, so it's unequal weights and measures. So he's just going to give you a share of it. Okay, the seller is obligated to provide a buyout demand from the buyer in the original currency that purchased the share certificate. So if the share certificate was bought in USD, then they have to keep the USD. The broker does. He has to keep that. If it's $25, it's not his $25. That goes into a escrow account. That goes out of circulation because he's got to keep that for a buyout. If somebody wants to come back and say, "Hey, man, I want to cash this in," then he can cash it in. He's got the money. Same thing with the continental dollar. This starts with a continental dollar, then it ends with a continental dollar. That's the way it works. The buyer is not entitled to a fee for any past exchanges of the share certificate, nor can the buyer refuse to pay the buyout fee of 10% or lower percentage rate over and above the value of the share certificate. The seller, through its broker, is acting as an automatic clearinghouse for the international currency exchange and is entitled to charge a fee for the service in whatever currency is being transacted. So, for instance, if you buy a share certificate of gold and silver, a share certificate with continental dollars, and you would like to transfer that to USD, you have to go back to the broker. So you got a buyer that says, "Yeah, I'll take that share certificate with I'll buy it for $25 USD." Great. If he charges 10%, it's $2.50 over and above the share certificate in the USD. The buyer always buys or always pays the transfer fee. Okay, so if you buy it in continental dollars, you can sell it in USD, you can sell it in pesos, you can sell it whatever you want. You just have to go back through the broker because you want to keep your chain of title to that share certificate. The seller, through its broker, is acting as an automatic clearinghouse for the international exchange, currency exchange, and is entitled to charge a fee for that service in whatever currency is being transacted. So if it's being, in other words, if it's being sold for USD, then he can charge $2.50 in USD. If it's being sold in continental dollars, then he can charge $2.50 in continental dollars if he goes to the full 10%. Every time the share certificate is bought or sold, the share certificate issuer is entitled to a transfer fee over and above the value of the share certificate. And everybody's saying, well, oh, that's crap. That's monopoly. It gets better. Don't worry. The share certificate itself can be traded for anything of value. If the share certificate is traded for something other than currency, the share certificate issuer is not entitled to a transfer fee. So if you go into the store and the store knows about these share certificates of gold and silver, and you say, hey, I'd like to buy this, you just hand them the share certificate, you hand it over to them along with the receipts. We'll show you that in a minute. And then they can give you USD in return. So you give them a $50 share certificate, and what you're buying is only $45. They give you $5 change for that. That's not a transfer in currency. Okay, a share certificate is not valid unless the receipt from the original buyer is attached to the share certificate, and the receipt is attached to the share certificate from any other currency exchange transaction from the broker. To maintain chain of title to the share certificate, this keeps out all fraud. Nobody can just create share certificates. If they don't have the receipt, it's no good. It has to come from the broker. The broker has to verify it. The absence of a receipt may cause conflict of a transfer fee owed to the broker, wherein the broker may refuse a buyout if demanded by a share certificate holder. If you don't have a receipt, you got nothing. All this fraud is gone. Okay? If buyer becomes seller of the share certificate, all transactions are required to be facilitated through the broker of the share certificate issuer. The buyer of the share certificate is the party responsible for the transfer fee owed to the broker. In a buyout, the one demanding the buyout is responsible for the buyout fee charged by the broker over and above the value of the share certificate. It's very simple. Okay, the seller is strictly forbidden from selling the share certificate at a profit or loaning the share certificate at interest. The value of the share certificate is always valued at face value. However, if the share certificate is spent complete with receipts, as if it were the continental dollar or other currency, change may be issued by the accepting party. This type of trade is not classified as a currency exchange, and the broker is not entitled to a transfer fee. So if you have the receipts and say you've got this share certificate's been sold 50 times, you got 50 receipts plus the share certificate because you have chain of title, and you give it to somebody else and they give you change, now they can go and do a buyout. They can go get the money out of that from the broker. It's a very specific way it's done, and this cuts out any type of fraud whatsoever. This also allows the gold miner to keep his gold and not have to give it away for paper. Which does what? Keeps the value of the gold within the metes and bounds of the country. And he's making $250 here, $5 there, $10 here, blah, 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 doing whatever through his broker. And guess what? Then he can take that money and then he can start more businesses, which means you can go and find somebody to manage a company for him. He can go use that money to start a company. Say it's a restaurant or some kind of service. He puts somebody in as manager. Within 5 years, now that manager owns the company. He's made some money off of it. Now he's going to make money off of the share certificates that are going through that company. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And this goes right along with our labor voucher system with the Continental Dollar. Which means you can have a very solid and thriving economy within a matter of 4 to 5 years. Everybody will after 5 years of using this system, will have money. And there will be a certain amount of gold, which means that you can't go overboard on creating the labor-backed Continental Dollar. There's only a certain amount of shares that are available. So everybody's stuck. Okay? You can't go higher than a certain amount. That way, why? You don't have any inflation. You're not over there printing $100,000 bills. That buys a piece of candy. It's a solid foundation for an economy, and it will work. The labor-backed voucher system has been successful before, very successful, by the way. And those labor-backed dollars were capped. It was capped at a certain amount. Well, this is how this is done. So there's only a certain amount of gold, and we want to make sure the guy that has the gold makes some money, does some reinvestment, doesn't give it all away. He starts local businesses and things like that, and gets his town moving. And that's what we're after. So if there are any questions, leave them in the comments. You got anything else, John?
No, sir, I don't think so, Keith.
Okay. If you'd like to involve yourself in the voucher system, we've had over 52 vouchers already done. And we've got over, I think it's 750,000 or 900,000 in labor-backed currency already put into the system. So it's there. And we would love to get people that have gold mines and start offering these share certificates. It's perfectly legal, even today. Even in today's crap world that has no laws, it's perfectly legal. That don't have social compact agreements. So we're putting this back together. We're putting the country back together through social compacts, national governments, local assemblies, county assemblies, if you want to call them that register with that government, and then you start electing somebody to be for your county to go to the legislature, and you start actually making real laws. We already have a social compact in place. You can alter it or amend it within the county if you'd like. If there are certain things, because there's a lot of people that have been burnt, so they're going to be, no, you write it this way, and I want this, and I want, they're going to be getting paranoid because they don't want this to happen to them again. And we get that. We understand the paranoia. So, you can take the American National Social Compact, and then you can either use that within the counties and register your assembly there. And I think we had some people trying to register an assembly. They were calling it something state assembly. That's not an assembly, guys. Just do the name of your county. A Charlotte County Assembly. That'd be well enough. and then put the name of the state, state of so-and-so, the United States of America, in the heading.
Yes, because it's illegal to change the name of stuff just to put it in.
Yeah, they like to change the name of the state. They like to go from
Yep.
state of to so-and-so state because somebody passed it around that the state ofs were all corporations. Okay? So we got to stop all that and go back to the name of the original state and start rebuilding the country so that your children have a future. Anything else, John, that we need to cover before we go?
No, sir, nothing other than the fact that they have to take an oath or an affirmation to the compact agreement so they can be part of the population to give them the authority to assemble, basically.
Okay, or allegiance to the state, right?
That's right.
When they sign the social compact, they can take an oath and affirmation to as allegiance to the state, and
Yep.
that way they're counted as one. You can be either citizens of that state, or you guys can qualify them as nationals of that state. You don't have to be citizens.
And
Matter of
without,
fact, back in the day, they called citizenship demeaning.
yep. In fact, is without that acceptance right there, they don't have the authority to even exist.
As a citizen or national, right?
Right. They don't exist if they don't claim it. They claim it through the compact agreements.
Right. So they exist as stateless persons.
Right.
And when you're a stateless person, you have zero say. It's basically an exile. You have no country.
Exactly. Exactly. And with that, I don't have anything else, Keith.
Okay. So just to keep in mind, social security numbers, not a social compact. A Bill of Rights, not a social compact, and nor does it qualify to as a social compact to restrict any form of government to come against you. State legislatures, I want every attorney and lawyer to watch this program. You got nothing, guys. Got nothing. All your statutes are worthless. All your charges are worthless. You have no social compact that created that legislature. So you're done. You're out of business. That's the way it works. But, couldn't happen to a better crowd. All right. Thanks for listening to the 122nd broadcast of the T-Roh Show. We'll see you next week.